Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Broadleaf. I'm Lisa. I'm here with Lenny Duncan, who's the author of the forthcoming book, United States of Grace. Lenny, thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us about your new book.
Yeah, my name is Lenny Duncan. I'm a writer. I like to think of myself as a black queer thinker. And I serve in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America as a pastor, as long as they let me. Um, who knows how long that'll be. And I currently live in Vancouver, Washington, serving with a group of folks that call ourselves Jubilee Collective. So that's who I am.
Great, thanks. Tell us a little bit about United States of Grace. It's your new book, it's your memoir. What story are you telling in that book?
Yeah, United States of Grace is based on this idea that setting aside our leaders, setting aside our systems, and setting aside the long history of oppression, but not ignoring in America, um, what America is moments like this. It's moments like you and me having conversations where we get to know each other and we move a little bit closer and we start to believe in one another and we start to realize that the person next door is actually a real person that has feelings, hopes, dreams, and aspirations. That is what America is, and that is worth fighting for. And it's actually worth still having hope in. And so it is the defense of the republic from the position of a person who's never been able to engage in its rights, privileges, or dream.
Yeah,
So it's written from that perspective. Someone who's never been allowed to engage in the American dream, defending the American dream. And to do that, I use the 5 or 6 worst things that ever happened to me. So almost being lynched and killed, spending almost a year and a half in solitary confinement in juvenile prison, being homeless at 13, coming out in a very unsafe family, all those things. And I use them as a jumping off place to actually show how much hope, grace, and mercy there are in this country. Because in every one of those places and in every one of those stories, you folks showed up and you slid into the cracks of all the brokenness and filled it with so much grace, hope, and mercy that I don't want to abandon the entire American project, even as someone who has clearly not benefited from it,
yeah.
and has been systemically, oppressed for 400 years. So that is sort of what the book's about, and a lot of other weird and fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an incredibly inspiring story that you're telling. It is compelling. It is funny and wild. Yeah, and really moving. I think one of the parts of your story, or I guess one of the points that you're making through your story in the book that really jumped out at me was this idea of the margins and the way that
Yes.
folks like myself, progressive white folks, folks in the majority, sort of talk about the margins and fetishize the margins and use that language, and that you make the claim that kind of talk is really one of the most racist narratives among progressive folks. So talk a little bit about that and how your book is trying to flip that narrative.
Well, yeah. I mean, when people talk to me all the time, they'll be like, "Oh, formerly incarcerated. Oh, my heart." Or, "Oh, you grew up in West Philadelphia where the move bombings happened. You saw that as a child, the trauma." Or they'll say, any of the number of things that they're trying to say, but it's actually a racist narrative because most of the joy, poetry, art, liberation, politics, culture, and thought that America has so gratefully claimed as its own have come from the so-called margins.
Yeah.
So obviously there's joy, creativity, life, community that isn't necessarily all bad, and in
Right.
fact isn't at all. I think the big thing is that white America doesn't have access to it. So it
Yeah.
assumes that the things that it sees, like people being gunned down in the streets while unarmed is all Black America is, or the few cries that they hear when they encounter it. But in general, the margins of this country, the folks who have no home, the folks who aren't allowed to openly love or be who they want to be, and the folks who are followed around every day and treated differently just because their skin color, well, they got a lot of great stuff going on in their lives. And it infuriates me. It's one of the most racist narratives, as if everything that I've ever done has been bereft of hope and love and beauty and grace, but yet every white American I've ever met tries to emulate it in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's that's one of the things that we're playing with a lot in the book, is we're trying to say, like, hey, these are not all stories of like sadness and brokenness. Like, I had a dope life. I did a lot of dope things. I did things that are actually so fun you're reading about them. So so I mean, yeah, it's trying to push back against that narrative a little bit.
I think one of the most beautiful chapters in the book is the chapter titled Blackness is a Revelation. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that chapter, and also about how the current moment that we're in is sort of helping to reveal the creativity, beauty, joy that's inherent in Blackness and inherent in the Black experience.
Yeah, I think, when I originally started to write that chapter, I talk about, a little bit about how we all figure out that we're Black. And typically you learn that you're Black in America by violence being perpetrated against you or someone you know. And whether that's social violence, someone at school calling you a name, or someone calling one of your parents a name, or something, like something happens, like some form of violence happens in your life, or it's physical violence, or it's state violence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's typically, as a child, when you're Black in America, you realize it through some sort of violent revelation. Um, Blackness is a revelation, though, and it's a revelation to the world. It's a revelation to art. It's a revelation to this country. It's a revelation to the Creator. All that Blackness is like revelation. It is an unveiling. It is a true seeing. And when you add Black culture, or you center Black culture, you will see a true unveiling of what your community and what your people or your church or your house or your friends or your family or your corporation has to offer. You can just look at the cries of Black Lives Matter and certain municipalities' responses to it, certain federal responses to it, as well as police responses to it. And then you can think about the responses of those that you've known in your life, on social media, across the dinner table. Blackness will always be a revelation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for talking with me about it today. If folks want to learn more about this book, learn more about you, where can they go to connect with you?
They can go to unitedstatesofgrace.com. I finally put everything in one place, so you can go there. You can find like weird merch. You can pre-order the book. You can sign up for my Substack. My Substack runs on a reparations pricing schedule. Where if you are BIPOC, you don't ever have to pay anything. If you're white and queer and struggling because you're in school, or just like poor because capitalism sucks, you don't have to pay anything. But like everyone else, like, you should pay, and you should come subscribe to my blog, because that's what we're trying to do, is offer free Black thought, unedited and quickly. The way publishing works is, I think of something, you see it a year later.
Yeah.
We're trying to be able to give you some quality content in real time, unencumbered by the industry. So you can subscribe to the Substack for that. We're also going to be building community based off the ideas in the book for the months and weeks afterwards, including events, including my book launch event, including how to be on the book launch team. But more importantly, how do we take these ideas about this country that we love,
Mm-hmm.
and apply them to our personal lives? And so we're going to be talking a lot about that over the next year, year and a half. And they'll also get hints on this third project I'm working on, kind of. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lenny. Thanks for this conversation, and we can't wait to hear more from you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.